Welcome back to our channel, my dear friends. Today, we are going to talk about something that silently steals our peace. Overthinking. Sometimes nothing bad has happened, but your mind starts creating stories. What if I fail? What if they are angry with me? What if something goes wrong? What if I made the wrong choice? And suddenly, you are worried about problems that are not even real. That is the danger of overthinking. Your mind takes one small situation and turns it into 10 different problems. You read one message and start guessing the hidden meaning. Someone does not reply, and you think they are upset. You make one mistake, and your mind tells you your whole future is in danger. But most of the time, the problem is not the situation. The problem is the story your mind creates around it. Thinking is useful. It helps us plan, learn, and make better decisions. But overthinking is different. Overthinking does not give you clarity. It gives you stress. It does not solve the problem. It makes the problem feel bigger. If your mind is always busy with what if, this video is for you. Take a deep breath, relax your mind, and remember, not every thought is true. Not every fear will happen. And not every problem deserves your peace. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Your thoughts are not always the truth. One of the most important things you need to understand about overthinking is this. Just because you think something does not mean it is true. Your mind can create stories very quickly. Imagine you send a message to your friend. They see it, but they do not reply. After 10 minutes, your mind starts. Did I say something wrong? Are they angry with me? Maybe they don't want to talk to me anymore. Maybe our friendship is changing. Nothing has actually happened. Your friend may simply be busy. Maybe they are working. Maybe their phone battery is low. Maybe they saw your message and forgot to reply. But your mind has already created a complete negative story. This is how overthinking steals your peace. You start suffering from something that has not even happened. The same thing happens when you make a mistake. Maybe you make one small mistake at work. Your mind says, my boss will be angry. Maybe I will lose my job. What will I do then? What will people think? One small mistake suddenly becomes a disaster in your imagination. Stop for a moment. Ask yourself, what do I actually know? Not what you fear, not what you imagine. What do you truly know? Maybe the truth is simply, I made a mistake. That is all. You can correct it. You can apologize. You can learn from it. You can move forward. Do not add 10 imaginary problems to one real problem. This is a powerful habit. Whenever your mind starts running toward the worst possible result, separate facts from fears. For example, fact, they have not replied. Fear, they are angry with me. Fact, I have an interview tomorrow. Fear, I will definitely fail. Fact, I made a mistake. Fear, everything is ruined. Can you see the difference? Facts tell you what is happening. Fear tells you what might happen. And sometimes, what you fear never happens at all. Another problem with overthinking is that your mind loves the question, what if? What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I choose the wrong path? What if something bad happens? But if your mind can ask negative what-if questions, you can also ask positive ones. What if I succeed? What if I learn something? What if this opportunity changes my life? What if things work out better than I expected? You do not know the future. So why always imagine the worst version of it? Overthinking also makes you believe that if you think about something long enough, you will somehow control the result. But thinking for 5 hours about tomorrow will not give you control over tomorrow. Sometimes you need to make the best decision you can and then let life happen. You cannot prepare for every possible situation. You cannot control what everyone thinks. You cannot know exactly what will happen next. And that is okay. Peace begins when you stop demanding an answer to every question. When you catch yourself overthinking, say, "This is a thought, not a fact." Then bring yourself back to what is real. Look around you. Where are you right now? What is actually happening? What can you control in this moment? Maybe there is no emergency. Maybe nothing terrible is happening. Maybe your mind has simply traveled too far into an imaginary future. Come back to today. Come back to this moment. A young woman once applied for a job she really wanted. After the interview, the company did not contact her for several days. Her mind immediately started creating stories. I gave terrible answers. They didn't like me. I am not good enough. For 3 days, she worried about something she did not actually know. Then the company called. She got the job. All that stress had been created by a story in her own mind. Nothing had been wrong. She simply did not have the answer yet. That is an important lesson. Sometimes not knowing does not mean something bad is happening. It simply means you do not know yet. Do not believe every negative story your mind creates. Check the facts, question your fears, and stop turning possibilities into problems. Sometimes the situation is much smaller than the story inside your head. Lesson 2. Stop replaying the past in your mind. Overthinking is not always about the future. Sometimes your mind keeps taking you back to the past. You remember something you said yesterday. You remember a mistake you made last month. You remember an embarrassing moment from years ago. Then your mind starts asking, why did I say that? Why did I do that? What must they think about me? I should have done something different. And suddenly, you are feeling bad today because of something that already happened. This is one of the biggest traps of overthinking. You keep trying to change a moment that cannot be changed. Think about it. Maybe you said something embarrassing during a conversation. You come home and replay that conversation again and again. You remember every word. You imagine what the other person thought. You create 10 better answers you could have given. Meanwhile, that person may have already forgotten the conversation, but you are still carrying it. Do not punish yourself for a moment that is already over. You cannot go back and change yesterday, but you can learn from yesterday. There is a big difference between reflection and overthinking. Reflection says, I made a mistake. What can I learn? Overthinking says, I made a mistake. Let me think about it for the next 3 days. Reflection gives you a lesson. Overthinking gives you stress. When something goes wrong, ask yourself 3 simple questions. What happened? What did I learn? What can I do differently next time? Then move forward. You do not need to keep opening the same old wound just to understand that it hurt. Take the lesson and continue your life. You also need to forgive yourself for the person you used to be. Maybe you made poor decisions. Maybe you trusted the wrong person. Maybe you wasted time. Maybe you missed an opportunity. Maybe you stayed somewhere longer than you should have. Today, you look back with more experience and think, how could I do that? But remember something important. The person you are today knows things that the person you were back then did not know. It is easy to judge an old decision using today's knowledge, but you were making decisions with the understanding you had at that time. If you have learned from it, you have already grown. Do not turn growth into another reason to hate your past. Sometimes people also replay painful words. Someone criticized you. Someone rejected you. Someone said something disrespectful. The conversation lasted 5 minutes, but you carried it for 5 months. You remember their words while eating. You remember them before sleeping. You imagine different things you should have said. But ask yourself, why am I giving this person free space in my mind? You cannot control what someone said yesterday, but you can decide how much attention you give those words today. Not every comment deserves a permanent home inside your head. Sometimes, the healthiest response is, "That happened. I learned from it. I am moving on." Another problem is that overthinking makes past mistakes feel bigger than they really were. You may remember something embarrassing from 5 years ago and still feel uncomfortable. But think about your own life. How many embarrassing things that other people did 5 years ago can you remember? Probably very few. Why? Because people are usually thinking about their own lives. The moment that feels huge inside your mind may have been very small to everyone else. So stop carrying unnecessary embarrassment. You are allowed to have awkward moments. You are allowed to say the wrong thing sometimes. You are allowed to make mistakes. That is part of being human. The goal is not to have a perfect past. Nobody has one. The goal is to become wiser because of it. You can also use a simple rule when an old memory keeps returning. Ask, "Can I do something about this today?" If yes, do it. If you owe someone an apology, apologize. If there is a mistake you can correct, correct it. If you need to change a habit, begin changing it. But if there is truly nothing you can do, then continuing to think about it will not help you. Give yourself permission to let it go. Imagine driving a car while constantly looking in the rearview mirror. You need to look back sometimes. It helps you understand what is behind you. But if you keep looking backward while trying to drive forward, eventually you will lose control. Your past is like that mirror. Look at it to learn, not to live there. A young man once made a mistake during an important presentation. He forgot part of what he wanted to say. Afterward, he felt embarrassed. For several days, he kept replaying the moment. "I looked stupid. Everyone probably laughed at me. I should never speak in public again." Then one of his coworkers said, "You made one mistake. I barely remembered it until you mentioned it." That sentence surprised him. The moment had become huge in his own mind, but everyone else had already moved on. So he asked himself, "What can I learn?" He practiced more before his next presentation. He prepared better. And the next time, he spoke with much more confidence. He stopped using his past to punish himself and started using it to teach himself. That is what you should do too. Always remember, the past is a place to learn from, not a place to live. Take the lesson, forgive yourself, and move forward. Do not allow yesterday's mistakes to steal today's peace. Lesson 3. Stop thinking and start doing. Overthinking often makes you feel busy without actually moving forward. You think, you plan, you imagine, you worry, you create different situations inside your mind. But after hours of thinking, nothing has changed. This is where overthinking becomes dangerous. Thinking should help you take action, not stop you from taking action. Imagine you want to start a YouTube channel. Your mind says, What if nobody watches? What if people laugh at me? What if my first video is bad? What if I choose the wrong topic? What if I fail? You spend weeks thinking about everything that could go wrong. Meanwhile, someone else with less experience simply makes their first video. It may not be perfect. Maybe only 10 people watch it. But that person has something you do not have yet. Real experience. They can improve the next video because they actually started. You are still trying to solve imaginary problems before they even exist. This is why action is one of the best answers to overthinking. When you take action, you get real information. You stop guessing. You start learning. Maybe you are thinking about learning English. You can spend hours asking, what is the best method? Which book should I buy? Should I learn grammar first? Which app should I use? These questions can be useful, but after some point, you need to practice. Speak 5 sentences, learn a few words, listen to a short conversation. Use English. 1 hour of real practice can teach you more than several hours of worrying about the perfect method. Overthinking often comes from wanting to make the perfect decision. You want to know that your choice will definitely work before you begin. But life cannot give you that guarantee. Sometimes, you have to make the best decision you can with the information you have. Then you learn as you move. You can change direction later. You can improve the plan. You can correct mistakes. A decision does not always need to be perfect. Sometimes, it simply needs to be good enough to help you move forward. Another reason we overthink is fear of mistakes. We think, if I think about this long enough, maybe I can avoid every mistake. But you cannot. No matter how carefully you plan, sometimes things will go wrong. That is normal. Mistakes are not proof that you should never have started. They are part of learning. A child does not learn to walk by sitting down and thinking about the perfect first step. The child stands, falls, gets up, tries again. That is how learning happens. Adults sometimes forget this. We want to be good before we begin. But you become good because you begin. So when your mind becomes stuck, ask yourself, what is the smallest useful action I can take right now? Maybe you cannot finish the whole project today. Write the first page. Maybe you cannot solve the entire problem. Make one phone call. Maybe you cannot completely change your health. Take a 20-minute walk. Maybe you cannot become fluent in English today. Practice for 15 minutes. Small action breaks the overthinking cycle. Your mind says, what if? Action says, let's find out. That is a powerful change. Instead of imagining what might happen, you begin discovering what actually happens. You should also give yourself a time limit for small decisions. Not every decision deserves hours of thinking. What should I eat? Which shirt should I wear? Should I send this simple message? Sometimes, choose and move on. Save your mental energy for decisions that truly matter. If every small choice becomes a big discussion inside your head, you will feel tired before you reach the important things. And when you have a bigger decision, write things down. Do not keep everything moving around inside your mind. Write the options. Write the good points. Write the possible problems. Ask yourself what matters most. Then choose. Writing can turn a confusing thought into something you can actually see and understand. After you make the decision, stop putting yourself on trial. Do not spend the next week asking, was that definitely the perfect choice? You made the best decision you could. Give it a chance. If something needs to change later, change it. You are allowed to adjust. You are allowed to learn. You are allowed to choose again. Life is not an exam where every decision has only one correct answer. Sometimes, there are several good paths. You discover yours by walking. A young woman wanted to start a small online business. For 6 months, she researched everything. She watched videos. She read articles. She made plans. Then she changed the plans. She worried about the name, the logo, the price, and what people might think. She wanted everything to be perfect before she started. One day, her friend asked her a simple question. What have you actually sold? The answer was nothing. She realized she had spent 6 months preparing for problems she did not even know she would have. So she created a simple version of her product and offered it to a few people. Some liked it. Some gave suggestions. She made changes. Slowly, the business improved. She learned more from 1 month of action than she had learned from 6 months of overthinking. That is the lesson. You do not need to know everything before you move. Sometimes clarity comes after you take the first step. Always remember, do not spend your whole life trying to think your way into a perfect future. Think enough to choose a direction, then take action. Your mind can imagine 1,000 problems, but one real step can show you what is actually true. Lesson 4. Come back to the present moment. Overthinking usually takes you away from the present. Your body may be sitting in one room, but your mind is somewhere else. It is thinking about tomorrow. It is thinking about next month. It is thinking about something that may never happen. You may be eating food, but your mind is worrying. You may be talking to someone, but you are not really listening. You may be trying to sleep, but your mind is running through 10 different problems. This is why overthinking feels so tiring. Your body is in the present, but your mind is living in many different places. The present moment is usually much simpler than the story inside your head. Right now, maybe you are safe. Maybe you are sitting comfortably. Maybe nothing terrible is happening, but your mind is imagining problems from tomorrow. You are feeling stressed today for something that may never happen. This is where you need to bring yourself back. Ask yourself, what is actually happening right now? Not what may happen, not what happened last week. What is happening now? Look around you. Notice the room. Notice your breathing. Notice the sounds around you. Feel your feet on the ground. Take one slow breath. These simple things remind your mind. I am here. You do not need to solve your whole future in this moment. You only need to handle what is in front of you. If there is a real problem today, solve today's part. If there is no problem today, do not create one only because your mind is afraid. Sometimes, the best thing you can say to yourself is, I will deal with that when it actually happens. This does not mean you should never plan. Planning is useful. But there is a difference between planning and worrying. Planning says, if this happens, I will do this. Then it stops. Worrying says, what if this happens? Then it repeats the question again and again without finding a solution. Planning gives direction. Worrying takes energy. Learn to notice the difference. You can also use your daily activities to practice being present. When you eat, really taste your food. When you walk, notice what is around you. When someone is talking, listen fully. When you work, focus on one task. When you rest, allow yourself to rest. Do not make your mind live 5 minutes ahead of your body all day. Give your attention to what you are doing. This may sound simple, but it can bring a lot of peace. Another helpful habit is to stop checking for problems all the time. Some people keep checking their phone, checking messages, checking email, checking whether someone replied, checking whether something changed. Every check gives the mind another chance to worry. Sometimes you need to leave things alone for a while. If you sent the message, wait. If you applied for the job, wait. If you did your part, allow time to do its part. You cannot force every answer to come faster. And sometimes your mind needs to hear, there is nothing more I need to do right now. That sentence can be very calming. You should also understand that uncertainty is part of life. You will not always know what happens next. You will not always have a clear answer. You will not always feel fully sure. Trying to remove all uncertainty is impossible. Instead, learn to live peacefully even when you do not know everything. You can say, I do not know what will happen, but I can handle this moment. That is enough. You do not need control over the whole future. You need trust in your ability to face the next step. A young man was waiting for the result of an important exam. For 3 days, he could not relax. He kept checking his phone. He imagined failing. Then he imagined disappointing his family. Then he imagined what he would do next. His mind created a whole future before the result even came. Finally, his father said, "Can you change the result right now?" The young man said no. His father replied, "Then do not give today away to a result that belongs to tomorrow." That sentence stayed with him. He put his phone away. He went for a walk. He spent time with his family. The result came the next day. He passed. But the bigger lesson was not the result. It was learning that he did not need to suffer before he had a real reason. Always remember, overthinking pulls you into a future that does not exist yet. Peace begins when you return to what is real, what is here, and what you can handle right now. Lesson 5. Do not give every thought your attention. Your mind creates thousands of thoughts. Some are useful. Some are random. Some are fearful. Some are not even important. The problem begins when you treat every thought like an emergency. You think, what if they do not like me? Then you spend 30 minutes thinking about it. You think, what if I fail? Then you imagine your whole future going wrong. You think, what if I made a mistake? Then you replay the same moment again and again. But not every thought deserves your time. Some thoughts should simply pass. Imagine cars moving on a road. You can stand on the side and watch them. You do not need to stop every car. Your thoughts are similar. You can notice them without following all of them. A thought may say, something bad will happen. You can answer, maybe, maybe not. Then return to what you were doing. You do not need to fight every thought. Sometimes fighting makes it stronger. If you keep saying, I must stop thinking about this, your mind may think about it even more. Instead, notice the thought and let it go. Say, there is that worry again. Then bring your attention back to the present. This is a simple but powerful skill. You should also stop giving small thoughts big meaning. Maybe someone speaks to you in a different tone. Your mind says, they are upset with me. Maybe they are just tired. Maybe someone walks past without saying hello. Your mind says, they are ignoring me. Maybe they did not notice you. Maybe you make one mistake. Your mind says, I always fail. One mistake does not mean you always fail. Be careful with words like always, never, and everything. Overthinking loves these words. One thing went wrong, so everything is bad. One person rejected me, so nobody will accept me. I failed once, so I will never succeed. These thoughts are usually bigger than the real situation. Use more honest language. Say, this one thing went wrong. This person did not choose me. I made one mistake. Now the problem becomes smaller and easier to handle. You can also ask yourself, is this thought helping me? If the thought helps you solve something, use it. If it only makes you more afraid, let it pass. For example, thinking, I should prepare better for tomorrow's meeting, can be useful. So prepare. But thinking, what if I embarrass myself? What if everyone thinks I'm stupid? What if my career is ruined? Does not help you prepare. It only increases stress. Turn thought into action when possible. If action is not possible, stop feeding the thought. Another helpful habit is to choose a short worry time. If something keeps returning to your mind, tell yourself, I will think about this at 7 p.m. for 15 minutes. Then continue your day. At 7 p.m., sit down and think about it. Write the problem. Write what you can do. Write what you cannot control. Often, by that time, the worry already feels smaller. This teaches your mind that it does not control your whole day. You decide when it gets your attention. You should also be careful with imagination. Your imagination is powerful. It can help you create ideas, solve problems, and dream. But overthinking can use the same imagination against you. It shows you failure before you even try. It creates rejection before anyone says no. It creates disaster before anything happens. So use your imagination in a better direction too. If your mind can imagine failure, let it imagine success. If it can imagine embarrassment, let it imagine confidence. If it can imagine everything going wrong, let it also imagine things going right. You do not know the future. So do not act like the worst result is already decided. And remember, your thought is not your identity. Thinking, I am afraid, does not mean you are a weak person. Thinking, I may fail, does not mean you are a failure. Thinking, I feel lost, does not mean your whole life is lost. Thoughts come and go. You are the person who chooses what to do next. A young man once had to speak in front of a large group. The night before, his mind became very busy. What if I forget everything? What if people laugh? What if my voice shakes? The more he followed these thoughts, the more afraid he became. Then he wrote them on paper. Next to each thought, he wrote, is this a fact? For every one, the answer was no. So he prepared his speech, slept, and went the next day. His voice shook a little at the beginning. Then he became comfortable. The speech went well. Later, he laughed because his mind had created a much bigger problem than reality. That day, he learned something important. A thought can feel real without being true. Always remember, you do not have to follow every thought your mind creates. Notice it, question it, and choose where your attention goes. Peace begins when you stop treating every thought like a problem that must be solved. Lesson 6. Let go of what you cannot control. A big reason we overthink is because we want to control everything. We want to know what will happen tomorrow. We want to know what people think about us. We want every plan to work perfectly. We want every decision to give us the result we expect. But life does not work that way. Some things will always be outside your control, And the more you try to control them, the more tired your mind becomes. You cannot control what people think about you. You cannot control whether everyone likes you. You cannot control the past. You cannot control every unexpected problem. You cannot control exactly what tomorrow will bring. But there are still many things you can control. You can control your effort. You can control your attitude. You can control how you respond. You can control what you say. You can control what you do next. This is where your energy should go. Imagine you have an important interview tomorrow. You cannot control exactly what questions they will ask. You cannot control who else applied. You cannot control the final decision. But you can prepare. You can practice. You can arrive on time. You can give your best answer. After that, you have to let the result come. Overthinking the result for 5 hours will not change it. It will only steal 5 hours of your peace. Sometimes you need to tell yourself, I have done what I can. The rest is not in my hands. That is not giving up. That is understanding where your responsibility ends. The same is true with people. You can be kind to someone, but you cannot force them to appreciate you. You can explain yourself clearly, but you cannot control how they understand you. You can love someone, but you cannot control every choice they make. Do your part honestly. Then let people make their own choices. You do not need to carry responsibility for everything. And when something unexpected happens, remind yourself, I may not control what happened, but I can control what I do next. That thought gives your power back. Instead of spending hours asking, why did this happen? Move toward, what can I do now? That is where solutions begin. Life will always have uncertainty. There will always be unanswered questions. There will always be things you cannot predict. Peace does not come when you finally control everything. Peace comes when you stop needing to. So tonight, if your mind is carrying something you cannot change, put it down. You have thought about it enough. Give your attention back to your life. Do what you can, accept what you cannot control, and stop creating problems before they arrive. Your mind deserves peace too. My dear friends, before you leave, remember this. Not every thought is true, and not every fear will become reality. Do not let your mind create problems that do not even exist. Stop replaying the past. Stop worrying about every possible future. Focus on what is real, what you can control, and what you can do today. When your mind says, what if everything goes wrong? Remind yourself, what if everything goes right? You deserve to enjoy your life without fighting imaginary battles inside your head. Think when you need to think. Act when you can act. And when something is outside your control, learn to let it go. If this video helped you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And share it with someone whose mind never seems to stop thinking. Before you go, write this in the comments. I choose peace over overthinking. Take care of your mind, stay present, and remember. Sometimes, the problem is not your life. It is simply the story your mind is creating. I'll see you in the next video.